action. Welcome everybody to the PnP Weekly episode 193. We're 7 episodes away from breaking 200. Apparently, we need to follow up with Seb on that, if I remember correctly, how we agreed on doing that. Now, today is 16th of January 2023. We are back from the vacation. We're back already 2 weeks ago or a week ago.
You weren't even gone.
Yeah, well, I wasn't gone. That's true. Because that's actually a great time to get stuff done and catching up on things as everybody else is out. Today we'll have Leon Armston as a visitor, and we'll talk about SharePoint or Microsoft Syntex, and also what does it actually mean in practice, and quite a lot of actually discussions on ChatGPD and what does the artificial intelligence could mean in the enterprise world. Interesting discussion, which we already recorded actually. So
definitely. Yeah, it is. It isn't like over the last few weeks, we've seen a lot of noise around ChatGPD and different things it could do. And there's also like, as simple as it might seem on the outside in the open, like when you think about it in the workplace, right? Like there are quite a few things to take into account. So yeah, without further ado, let's jump to the interview with Leon and let's talk more about AI in the enterprise.
Sounds good. Excellent. So welcome, Leon, to the PnP Weekly episode 193. We are closing into the 200 barrier from our side, which is of course cool as well. But even more cooler this time is to have you on the show. Can you talk about, Leon, who are you and what do you do for a living?
Hi. Firstly, I'd like to thank you for having me on the show. No, I've been a long time watcher, so it's an honor to be invited onto your show. So about me, I'm Leon Armston. I'm a M365 consultant. I work for a company called Intelogy, and I'm based near London in the United Kingdom, and I'm a MVP in M365 Apps and Services. I was awarded in September this year, so I'm still relatively new. But yeah, my passion is in mainly SharePoint, and I've been working with the SharePoint Sphere for, it's coming up to 2009. So yeah, coming up to 12, 13 years from SharePoint on-prem days to the cloud now, and document management and search. And now, since the past couple of years, I've been working with what was SharePoint Syntex to now Microsoft Syntex. So content and AI basically. So yeah, sticking to my SharePoint roots, but now I've got this added dimension of content AI.
Yeah, is it actually cooler to say that it's Microsoft Syntex rather than SharePoint, just out of curiosity? So what's the behind of the scenes? It's always SharePoint because that's powering like Microsoft Teams and all of the services.
Always SharePoint.
Yeah, SharePoint is the application layer for everything. No, it's cooler. I like SharePoint Syntex because before Microsoft Syntex brought content AI to the head of all the Microsoft ecosystem. SharePoint was kind of ignored. Like SharePoint was there in Teams, but you could be using Teams and not be aware that SharePoint was the files layer or anything like that. And I liked SharePoint Syntex because it still kept SharePoint relevant. But now it's obviously Microsoft Syntex to reflect that. Microsoft see it as a big deal. There's lots of investment, lots of engineering effort, and it is just content AI. So it's not only SharePoint now. It's not just document processing in SharePoint. It's now going to be in the future site level backup. It's going to be backup of Exchange mailboxes. It's going to be backup of sites, of OneDrive. So it's all-encompassing a brand, almost like a Viva brand now, the Microsoft Syntex.
Now, you kind of already explained that a bit. Can you explain for those who do not know, what is the Syntex thingy? What does it actually mean? What does it actually provide? Why would I care? Why would I have a look on more details?
That it solves.
Yeah, problem it solves. That's actually a good point.
Okay, so
putting you on a spot. So
I think pre-October at Ignite, October last year, it was well, SharePoint Syntex. It was SharePoint Syntex. But yeah, before that, it was just for processing of documents. So you're a company, you've got repositories of information, and you've got yeah, people can't find them unless they're, say, ninjas at search, or they have accurate file names, or they even have somebody just opening those files, reading them, and getting the important information out of them. And yeah, to be honest, nobody wants to open a document, read it, tag it. So yeah, with Microsoft Syntex, well, SharePoint Syntex as it was known then, it's very confusing, the names, but we will get to the day where we just call it Microsoft Syntex and not have to refer back to the past days. But yeah, but now you can train artificial intelligence models to open those documents, to extract, well, firstly to do the classification, so to identify in a big repository which ones are, say, the reports that you've trained your report model to. And then perhaps we need to get some additional information about that report. So we want to get, say, the author, what the title was about, whether there's any key figures, like any financial information in them, all stuff that a person would have to open that file and read it and grab that information out and then tag it as the metadata for the document. So with Syntex, we can do all of that at scale. So we can train a model, and then we can apply it to a library, and it will just pick out all the reports, extract all of that information, and then the files are enriched with metadata, so they can people can, if the libraries do, say, filtering, find like the high value reports, like in terms of monetary amounts, or the low value amounts, or say if it's a high value report, we've got like the whole automation story. So we could have a workflow that kicks off when a report is, say, over a certain financial figure, that it has to go to like the CEO, because the CEO is going to be very interested in that. And then obviously there's the search aspect, and once we've extracted that information, we've also, with in January last year, there was content assembly, so that was creating documents with Microsoft Syntex. So yes, so mainly it was documents, and now since October, document processing since October, it is now turning into more of a content, getting value from your content, but also your sites, also your archiving. There's lots, and it's a very fast moving area.
And
if you think about, like recently over the last few weeks, there was a huge blowout of the ChatGPD OpenAI. If you could have, or if you had a magic wand and you could wave it and you could have one thing, like, what would you want Syntex to evolve, giving developments that we see elsewhere in the world?
I think that's a good question, but I think it's, from what I've seen with the OpenAI, is like, that is reading your documents, and that is, reading all sorts of sources, and then that is making decisions. So with some of the announcements in October with Microsoft Search, so we're bringing more contextual searching. So you'd be able to, I think the example that they had was, you could ask it a question like, how many solar panels are mentioned, for example, but in the that wasn't like explicitly listed within the text of these documents. so like the search is going around and understanding and maybe adding up all these solar panels that are mentioned separately and then putting it all together. But yeah, so I think OpenAI will start to do that. Well, it already does that. My apologies, but yeah, we'll do it on a whole new level. So I think a key thing that I see it being really good for is from SharePoint. Like I've often built knowledge bases. So yeah, we've often had a knowledge base for an engineering company or an IT company or whatever, and we've had to have someone curate that. But yeah, if OpenAI is what it promises to be, then I don't think we will possibly need someone to curate it or anything like that. We will have the AI to curate it. So yeah, knowledge base is I see as being a big winner for it. And yeah, also like Microsoft have invested. Well, they are an investment partner of OpenAI, and they're investing more, I believe. But yeah, I'm excited to see how that can extend Microsoft Search and Bing, obviously, because it could be like your personal assistant, basically.
Sure. And I love the idea of having corporate specific content, let's say, analyzed by the AI, whatever AI it is, of course, with the security and of course with all of that stuff in the inside of the corporate world. And then you have like a analytics or helpers in place, which are making sure that when you're writing a order or a purchase order or whatever, basically it's checking that no, your wording should be aligned with these guidances because this is the corporate guidance. When you're writing a code in your let's say VS Code, there's a corporate code review happening on fly, which code is basically saying code styling, all of that, because everything is basically then inside of the company rules and benefits, and there's a lot of interesting opportunities for sure. And I think the ChatGPT, just random sidetrack, is kind of opening up the eyes for a lot of people. Like, oh, okay, now I get it, and now it's more. Now you kind of understand what's the art of possible. So
that is also an interesting thing, right? Because when you think about AI at work, like AI in the open, like it has access to all the stuff that is available to everyone, and it just works, right? It gets really hard, I can imagine, when you think about in the context of work, where not all of the content is available to everyone, right? So one is just to have your own enterprise-wide instance of AI, the model, that is going to be trained on the content you have internally. But then
the echoes,
exactly, the echoes applied. But how do you apply them to the model it trains, or the model that it builds, right? And how it's trained. In other words, if HR has a document that isn't open, HR should be able to benefit from that, but nobody else, because that is a non-public thing.
It's a corporate multi-version dedicated for you, because it's the multi-version where you live based on the echoes and permissions which you have, and that's going to be interesting.
Exactly, but applying that to the model that you should be smart, but only if you're talking to me. If you're talking to someone else, you shouldn't be smart.
Exactly. Yeah, that is. So as we're having a discussion, Leon, with you, then there would be an assistant which is basically saying, no, you shouldn't be talking about that information yet. It's not yet public because Leon does not have the higher level NDA. But if the Leon has, then you can talk about those things. It's an interesting, because then it's highly subjective, and then it comes to be this the AI, subjective AI, which is personalized, and that gets, well, you can only imagine how tricky that gets. But
it's basically the same way we talk to each other, right? I mean, I can tell you about stuff, but I wouldn't tell somebody else if I know that they are, So it's kind of we aspire, I think, the same in the end, right?
Yeah. And the search is already working like that anyway, so because search is aware of echoes and permissions and all of that, but it's getting that in a completely different dimension.
Search is a bit easier because
of course
it gives you back a document, whereas with AI, the answer it gives you could hint something.
Exactly.
Right, and I don't know. I don't think that the way AI is built. I mean, I am no AI expert, so I'm just guessing, but I don't think that by the time when it comes to you with a response, that at that times it goes to which resource it's coming from and what are the ACLs on that, and does the person am I allowed to use these things to answer?
Who knows? Not yet, maybe, but that's an interesting complexity. For the developer in me is like, wow, that's an interesting challenge to tackle because, as you said, ChatGPD, it's public information and everybody has access on it. But now we get that to the corporate world. Wow. Yeah. So I know Omar Shaheen, who's moving now or just moved from ODSP, so OneDrive SharePoint, to lead the Word development in Microsoft Word. He's CVP. And he's really into AI, so we can kind of start thinking on what's going to happen in Word as well. And I love the fact that there was already kind of the idea of you would never start from a clean slate. So you would actually tell somebody that I'm looking into doing this kind of things and this tone and all of that, and poof, and then you start working on it. So
yeah, it's interesting with the development aspect. With ChatGPT, you can say to it create me some PowerShell to create 100 users. They need to have this location, this reading off this CSV, and then I want to send an email to them. You can say that, and it will get you probably to about 95%. It will create all the big loop for you, and then the developer will then make a few changes. The AI will probably get better as you keep doing it, but that will get you 95% there. Yep. So then you won't need to start building it. You can already start from a fresh a prototype.
And that's a saving time, which means saving money, which means that you can use that save time and investment somewhere else rather than. And that's actually coming back on the Microsoft Syntex and what we're explaining how it actually works. And I think that's one of the benefits of the Microsoft Syntex is that you can actually clearly show the value, which says saving time, automatic tagging, automatic metadata, because especially us who've been around for a long time, at some point there was this mandatory metadata theme in many years. We will force people to do mandatory metadata.
20 fields to every
exactly. And surprise, then people started sharing their files using alternative services. That's too hard. So getting this in place already saves a lot. And then, of course, that increases the searchability and findability of information because then the metadata is in place. And that's already... You can kind of calculate even the return of investment because, again, you can calculate roughly the time what is being spent because there is a cost related on Syntex that's not free, right?
Exactly. Yeah, the not so fun parts.
That's yes. Yeah. That's highly efficient artificial intelligence doing a lot of stuff.
Indeed, so when you use correctly, we've seen some great benefits with my customers, and when the files are enriched with metadata, I forgot to mention as well that they light up Viva Topics as well, like the other AI knowledge part of Project Cortex. So the topics pages become better. They find more relevant files because say they're tagged with a specific company. So there's lots of savings, and we touched upon metadata. Nobody wants to open files and tag metadata. Nobody wants a big yellow prompt saying you can't do this, you can't. So
you cannot save the file because you haven't provided metadata. Well, fine, I'll move it to whatever service then. So
and then the user doesn't want to enter type something out, so they'll just type a couple of letters or something like that, and then they'll spell something incorrectly or put an ampersand or an and then it'll all appear different insert. So if you can just have the AI doing it, it generally works a lot better and everyone's happier.
Now, in theory, we've been having this discussion of the automatic metadata for let's say more than a decade, because if you come from the content management world and document management in SharePoint, that was something even I remember writing something on a server side for some customer to do some level of an automatic detection and whatever. And now we're finally kind of that's the promise of the SharePoint, Microsoft Syntex. See the changing of the products, that's so hard. How does it actually work? Now, let's strip away all of the marketing nonsense and all of that stuff, because we're just engineers, on this
Nonsense.
technical people in this chat. Does it actually work? And if I'm a company of 50 people, why would I care? Or is this more for a company of 50,000 people? So where's kind of the sweet spot?
I think
Any
it's. I think I've seen great success in both of those scenarios. So yeah, it might work for, say, a small engineering company that. I'm doing quite a lot of work at the moment with engineering companies that receive technical drawing plans. So they're the big A1 sheets with all the dimensions on, and we're scanning those, and each plan always will have like a stamp on the right hand side, could be the left hand side, could be that, but it'll have information about like the site title, the drawing title, the status, the revision number. So so we're, rather than like these companies have got plans going back years and years, like 20 odd years. So they don't want to again open up all those up and tag them themselves. So they are getting value by AI extracting those values, and then they can search. So they don't need to go into a physical library to pick up a physical plan anymore. They can go digitize and find them. So the small companies, it can just work well on just one library. So with some law firms, with the content generation, you might have a standard contract that you send out to everybody, and you just change the name, the client name, the company name, the date, the amount. That's really good for just producing similar contracts. And then companies that just receive a lot of information in, application forms, that could just be on one library. They'd normally have to have someone open that up and type some details in. So that could be Syntex, just extracting the information from, so it works with handwritten text or type text. So and then with a lot of big companies, I've done some work with projects. So like you'll provision a project site for everybody, and then that will have some Syntex models. So say if it's an engineering company, I'm using engineering quite a lot, when they add their final report to the library, the report model will be tagged. When they add their drawing models, the drawing model will be initiated and extract some value. So I think it's use cases. If you've got a small requirement that's very repetitive, then it's very, very good then. But then you also have the ability to provision these document processing models to many sites. So it can work really well in the larger organizations. But I think the key thing that I found is it's not necessarily like a developer focused thing. Like what Microsoft have done is like built this AI wrapper over Syntex. So behind the scenes, you've got all Azure resources like Azure Cognitive Services, Azure Forms Recognizer. But the end user, the normal business end user, doesn't see any of them. They just see it all in the UI, and it's all. So it's more. We'll start with the proof of concept. We'll get people used to it, but then we'll train the end users to be able to do it because they know their documents best. Like they know what a typical invoice looks like. They know what a typical report looks like. They know when there's going to be differences and stuff like that. But I need to transplant myself in the company for a year sometimes to like know what people know, or even longer. Like people have been there years. So well, I found like it democratizes AI, to coin the phrase.
Do you see it go, especially when you think about things like plans? Do you think that someday we will be able to use it in a way that you upload a drawing and AI can actually understand the elements on it and will say like, hey, you put the window too close to the doors?
Yeah, probably. Like, yeah, at the rate that AI is going at the moment, like, yeah, I've with law firms as well. I found that they want AI to like read the tone of the clause perhaps that they put in their contract. So yeah, Microsoft Syntex is not there yet, but like I know law firms are like wanting reading, and yeah, but no, AI is rapidly growing. So yeah, I probably see that if that's not there already, that it probably will be there soon, I'd imagine.
There was an interesting example somebody shared the other day. Like, how would they go about AI creating an NDA, right? So they would say, like, one, ask AI to come up with NDA, then upload the created NDA to AI and ask it to find loopholes in it. And then basically have it like work on and on to correct its own work, and then finally send it to lawyer.
Yeah. Yeah. So you need like a loop, like a for loop or something. Just keep
finding mistakes in your own work.
Yeah,
Yes.
like yeah.
Now Leo, I have to kind of have at least personal perspective. This is a good recap on SharePoint is actually a great. Syntex and the Microsoft 365 Cloud, not necessarily just SharePoint, is still a great platform for this kind of a project and contractual things. Because for whatever reason, if you think about, let's say, past 5 years, we as Microsoft, we've been focusing more on corporate communications and teams and collaboration and all of that. But the Syntex is kind of rolling that back to the basics, which is, remember, it's all about the documents. It's all about the document management. And I know Waldek has been around for creating these crazy large terabytes and terabytes of document management systems already in on-premises. And it's actually interesting to think something what you said related on the contractual things and scanning the images coming back on the engineering side. Is the Microsoft 365, from your perspective, is it reliable enough to think that the system will be there within 20 years? Because that's typical discussion point with the customers as well, like insurance companies. They can't invest in something which will be not there in 5 years. Now, SharePoint has existed now, 22 years roughly, which is a pretty long time for a product. But do you kind of think this as a long-term safe way of investing the document management side? Is Microsoft reliable enough? Oh, and of course, we are both Microsoft people, but it's
no. Yes, I think so. Like, I think like we've still got lots of companies still either migrating from old versions of SharePoint to SharePoint Online, or they've got people are migrating from other legacy systems into SharePoint, and so we're still finding that buzz of like people still wanting to go into it, and people are not moving that quickly to go to other platforms or anything like that. So like everything's in SharePoint. I was really excited from October, like with all the big Microsoft Syntex announcements. Like SharePoint as your repository, is a big bet. It's a big safe bet. I believe. Don't quote me in 20 years on this.
Remember, Leon, you said this.
There's lots of investment, and obviously it all ties in with lots of people using other features of M365 like Teams and and because Syntex is going to be able to go over like Outlook and stuff like that. So it's all very positive, I believe.
True. Do you see still, so in obviously there are regional and country level, let's say, adaptations and how people are adapting things. You mentioned that customers are moving away from legacy SharePoint, which is good. SharePoint 2013 support will stop in 2 months or so. So stop using older versions and go to the cloud. Now, one of the big things for Microsoft, which we have announced, I guess yes, we have, is that we're betting on the local data centers, which is also about, of course, from an EU perspective, important. Now that UK is a separate island, as it's always been a separate island, you are its own data center region as well. And then there will be those individual data centers in every single country, which are under the individual legislation on the country level. Is that an important thing? Is that a thing which will like, oh, yes, okay, now we can finally go there because now it's under the UK law? Is that does it have an impact in UK?
Yes, we've had companies, I think, with like Teams when it first started, like you had traffic doing. Well, I was based in New Zealand at that time, and we had traffic that
we need to come back on that. That's a good point.
Yeah, when Teams first came out, we had traffic that was going from New Zealand via Japan to USA and then back to New Zealand, and like the companies wasn't that. They were quite chilled about it, but I could see that being a big issue. But yeah, I think we have problems in the UK with people not wanting their data in the EU or US. But like I think sometimes when new services start, they often will start US first and then branch out. But we're quite fortunate in the UK that we've got lots of UK data centers, so it's not that much of an issue here. But I think it's a problem for a lot of other countries.
Yeah, and of course, at least I'm not sure on the situation in UK, but at least the EU level legislation is now changing, which is basically even the logs and access to the data center information is no longer available in US, which is really cool. So we are kind of making sure that nobody feels really bad about, but it's still the US company. And it's like, no, they cannot access that data center, period. It's isolated. So which will be an interesting operational challenge as well, because then you need to hire the local team, which is basically the one who's operating completely that, because you can no longer do centralized distribution. So, but it's an interesting change. Now, before we close up, you said actually something interesting. You said that was before when I was still in New Zealand. So how do you get to be Leon in Intelogy and work in the Microsoft Syntex? How did you get to be this Leon in this metaverse?
Indeed. So I was born in the UK and then lived and worked in London most of my life, and then met my wife, who is from New Zealand, in my late 20s, and then we decided to go to New Zealand because wanted to go and work abroad. So was only planning to go and work for 1 year, but then stayed for like 3 years in New Zealand.
It's not too far, right?
So not too far.
It's islands close by. So
it's only like Monday night there. So had 3 years there working for a company called Information Leadership, and had a really good time there. Learned lots. But then, decided to come back to the UK because obviously travel is a lot easier, time zones are a lot easier. And then I landed back in the UK just before COVID-19 hit in like March 2020. And then it was like, I've got to find a job. But fortunately, my New Zealand company and my UK company, Intelogy, were part of the Microsoft Content Services Partner Program, which is, now Content AI program. So I approached Intelogy and said, I've been doing lots of work with Project Cortex and Content and AI, and fortunately was able to join during COVID, and didn't meet my colleagues for a few months yet, but yeah, fortunately Teams is okay. And then I've been at Intelogy ever since 2020, and now developing the content AI practice, and so it's all very good at the moment. Thank you.
Cool. And it's having those few years somewhere else is probably refreshing as well. So what any like from a, let's say, a smile perspective, any massive cultural differences between New Zealand and UK? They're completely the same, isn't it? Almost the flag is almost the same, isn't it?
Almost the same.
There's a smaller version of UK flag in the New Zealand flag. Come on.
Yeah.
So.
No, mention the war.
No, I think it's just, I love my sport, so I love my football, obviously,
you mean soccer or football? Just kidding.
Yeah. it's always football, New Zealand, they're big into their rugby, and I don't mind rugby, but I much prefer my football, and the time zones don't play, so you'd be getting up in the middle of the night to watch football, no, I think we are quite similar in terms of New Zealand and UK people, and I really love my time there, and I thought my probably the only difference was in terms of technology. When I left the UK in 2016, it was SharePoint on. I was doing lots of work in SharePoint Online, and then I went to New Zealand, and I was going back in time because we were still building SharePoint on-premise servers. But that was coming back to data centers. That was because the nearest data center was in Australia, and they hadn't no data centers in the UK. So
but it's just close by, isn't it? New Zealand and Australia. It's just like. Few kilometers.
Exactly. You can pop there on your weekend. So it was kind of going back in time, still building SharePoint 2013 servers, we did catch up, but it was quite good because my SharePoint Online background, M365 background was really good when I got a job in New Zealand, because I was deemed the M365 expert, there was lots of good opportunities there to bring people up to speed. And then they do have New Zealand data centers now, but no, it was a very, very good learning experience, and it was tough to leave. We lived in Wellington, and I walked to work via the harbour every morning, and it was beautiful. So it was tough to leave.
yeah. I can only imagine the difference. I have never been in New Zealand or in Australia, but and it's actually kind of always fun to talk about the New Zealand and Australia. They're right next to each other. No, they're not. Well, but in the map, the distances are pretty big.
It's all on there, right? So.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Cool.
So I think we probably should be catching up, closing up in a second as well. But anything interesting that you're working on this week, Leon? Let's do a quick recap on something interesting. What's happening?
So I think in terms of my content AI stuff, I've got some project going live in a few minutes. But in terms of the content AI bits, I've been doing some work with the native parts of Syntex, so Azure Forms Recognizer on its own, so without using Syntex. So that's doing technical drawing plans, and that's been really interesting seeing playing about with the underlying technology. So that's, as I've spoken about, getting information about the drawing plans. So they're all tagged, and we can do stuff with them.
I have to say, because I didn't say that when it came up to my mind earlier on that discussion, is that it's actually kind of interesting how the Microsoft 365 is actually the abstraction layer on Azure, right? So the same completely applies in Power Apps or in Power Automate, especially because Power Automate is an abstraction layer in the Logic apps. So it's kind of
SaaS, you've got PaaS. It's
exactly,
the same
SaaS,
thing,
PaaS. Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. But it's an interesting kind of a way of also thinking that whatever we have in Azure, you can use it as a raw service, like you're now planning to test out things. But then Microsoft is planning to make more and more money on bringing that abstraction, so making it more approachable rather than just being the developer tool. Looking at where we are heading more and more as a low code, no code, and simple services, I guess that is a trend. So.
But I find it really interesting going into the back end because you can see what technologies are being built in there, what features are being built in there, and then you'll be like, oh, hopefully this will come to Syntex soon. Or if you see some error in Syntex, you'll often be able to see some different documentation in the Azure layer that will explain it better, perhaps. Or you'll see an error and you'll be think, oh, that happened in forms recognizer. So it's very useful to know what the tools are behind the scenes. Sure. That's probably my most interesting piece of work this week.
Anything interesting, Waldek, on your? A lot of stuff I know.
Always. So right now we're in a place where we're doing some internal works plans for things that we want to launch eventually. So things will start coming early March. Before that, we're going to launch a few things. So nothing to share yet, but we're busy writing plans, preparing, aligning with different folks across the company, across different things, and we keep developing a proxy, right? So a while back we launched the Microsoft Graph Developer proxy that allows you to test basically API errors, to model API errors on your box. Just the other day we shipped a new feature that allows you to build a plugin, right? So imagine you want to do something that we don't offer yet. You can now build your own plugin and bring it in. So you don't need to build your own tool. You can basically build on our runtime and add your specific things that we don't do yet.
Cool.
So that is already merged in a code. We haven't done a release yet. The release will come at the end of the month. And we have a few other things on our list to do. So that is in progress. CLI-wise, CLI for Microsoft 365, we're doing a few things too. So basically, stay tuned for more updates coming soon.
Yeah. And on my side, it's a lot about planning. There's a lot of actually semester reviews right now happening this week, which is cool. So things which we cannot talk about yet, because this is planning basically on what the ODSP and especially the SharePoint experiences with Viva Topics and Viva Connections, Viva Home, and all of that is basically what are we planning to do in this semester and then in the future. That time of the year. I think we are actually also rolling out the Viva Home to targeted release tenants this week. So that's a early teaser on something. Now, it might be actually out when we're releasing this, or then I'm just leaking out the information. It could happen. So, but that's actually really interesting as well. So the Viva Home dimension now arriving as well. So there's a lot of interesting stuff coming soon. Cool. Anyway, thank you, Leon. Really awesome discussion, and cool to have insights from your side. We can now see that the lights are coming on actually outside. So I didn't realize that it's a window. It's outside. It's out. So
that's my garden.
Yes. Cool. But thank you, Leon. Really awesome discussion, and we'll get you back on the show at some point to talk about whenever we, of course, get more AI stuff out. I'm pretty sure that you're up to date on what's happening there.
Thank you, Vesa. Thank you, Waldek. Pleasure to be on, and have a good day. And again, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Leon. And from here, we'll jump on the weekly articles with Waldek.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Excellent. Thank you, Leon, one more time on that one. Really cool discussion. And it's actually, of course, we don't really script any of these discussions, so it's cool to see how the discussion always goes to a certain direction, because at least for me that discussion concluded or had few kind of that's an interesting point. So without actually thinking that before the interview, so have during the interview coming some of those ideas. I think AI in enterprises is going to be huge. The question is, when is it ready for that? Because like we discussed, there's this huge difference between having an access on open world and open information, which is openly available for everybody through Bing or Google, versus the enterprise world and the privacy and security and access points and the persona level and what am I allowed to share with Waldek versus what am I allowed to share with somebody else. So
my gut feeling tells me that actually the more important questions will be, when will people be ready for AI in the enterprise? Because I think like we've already seen, way back when already, quite a few years, Delve. You could think of it as a precursor to that. Sure, maybe it isn't AI, right? Because it's all based on signals that are already tracked, right? So it doesn't really have learning models behind, or at least it didn't have then. It was all based on, because
existing
we
signals.
did a meeting, there is a recorded signal of that relationship between us, and based on that, it can infer some of these things. But already that opened a huge discussion about like, hey, if I do things, what people will be able to see, and do I want that, and do I want to see it from others? Like, do we allow that as a company? So all of that, I think, is just early days. As much as everyone is excited about it, it's still early days to really get adoption of that. And I think like, I wonder, like, I don't think that it will be different, from autonomous cars. Like the law around it and what is allowed, what is permitted, all the rules around it, that will take way longer than for us building the tech.
Corporate controls and secure, and also the internal compliance or making sure that the privacy of the individual persons are not getting, especially outside of, well, there are different rules between privacy between the countries in the world. Let's put it that way.
Even that, definitely.
And I think the Delve is such a great example, or even the search was such a great example at some point, because people were like, but now I can find all of the documents which I have access. Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah, but then if somebody is accidentally adding a document which is not meant to be found, well, but that's a mistake. So it's kind of exactly.
You always were able to access that, you just didn't know, right? Because like in the past, before Delve, it didn't occur to you to search for things of which you didn't know, and Delve made that visible because you had a relationship with a person. That person shared a document in the open, knowingly or not, and that made it show up in their page, right? So it kind of made it implicit, like explicit, like how important it is to really secure your work and think about it. If you create something, who should be able to access that?
Yep, absolutely. Now, let's jump on the weekly articles. A lot of Microsoft stuff this time, which is kind of understandable. People come back from the holiday break and then they jump on, we need to get stuff moving. So let's start with the blog post with Mark Cashman, which is the Fast Fridays with Jeff Teeper, the Infrazone podcast, a really great podcast with Mark Cashman and Chris McNulty. And in this time, they have a Jeff Teeper as the visitor, and they talk about Fast Fridays, which is a really cool weekly summary in 5 minutes, which Jeff actually shares across his organization. So it's really like the flow of thoughts and pinpointing like 6 to 10-ish items in a slide and calling them out. So where has he spent time, and also what are the main decisions? So, and of course on top of that you can then start finding additional details if there's anything interesting. But it really gives a nice summary in 5 minutes, again, on what's actually happening within an organization. So really cool to get this one shared also externally out. So great way of communicating and having that consistent every single Friday, something is coming out. So really cool. Good. The next one was a 4 goal setting trends for 2023 and how Microsoft Viva Goals can help, from Vetri Velori.
Definitely, right? So as the year starts, many companies plan based on the calendar year. And I think this post is a timely way to reiterate the importance of goals for a company or even for an org or a team, right? And how the tools that we offer at Microsoft can help you with that. So a great article. It's not really technical. It's more more around the concept of exactly. So a great reference material to start and think about goals.
Absolutely, absolutely. Then we had a blog post around 10 years of Microsoft 365, more benefits and even better prices. So basically an update of Microsoft 365 being available for 10 years. And one of the points here is for a consumer side. There's the Microsoft 365 Basic, and that's going to be, well, we have the Microsoft 365 family for our family, and that gives me like 5 terabytes of storage in the cloud, which is, by the way, huge.
But 2 videos, right?
Yes, but this is a bit more affordable. So basically, our pricing is more affordable, and then you have less storage, but it's still making sure that all of the even your personal files and like images. I sync all of my images from my phone directly to the cloud, so they're guaranteed to be safe. So really, really cool stuff as an example on that, and other updates as well. What's actually happening around Microsoft 365 now. Then we had a blog post from Nicole Hershowitz.
Yes, exactly. About how Microsoft Teams empowers your retail workers to do more with less. Already, I don't know how long, it was already for 2 years. I think it was like, it's really big area for us at Microsoft to focus on frontline workers and how, you know, our tools that we offer can help them work, right? So it's all about retail, blue collar, right? All of that. How they can use the tools that information workers use behind the screen, how that works in the field out there. So it's a really interesting article, like for if you're not exposed to that every day, it's a great way to see like how, for example, Teams is being used by other folks, right? So so it's it is an, if anything else, it's an eye-opening article of at least to me, to learn about this.
Inspirational ideas, and then how other businesses can adapt on these things, and really, really cool stuff as well. So I think we should have much more of this across the different industries and explaining how the tooling can be used, because unfortunately we as Microsoft, we always focus on cool tool. And it's like, but what does it mean in practice? Cool tool. Take this tool. Yeah, I get that. That's really cool. But what does it mean for our employees? What does it mean for our company is always the key. And then having that industry-specific messaging is really key here. So cool to see that from Nicole. Now, then we had a blog post in Microsoft Viva Blog, make your goals reality with OKRs and new capabilities for Microsoft Viva Goals, an update on what's happening in the Microsoft Viva Goals side. So that's a kind of a yearly recapping on what's happening and related on that other blog post as well. But how you can do those OKRs and how does it actually work, and how you can integrate even the Viva Goals to other systems. So really, really cool stuff as well. Then there was a blog post from Andrea Lum, reach your learning goals with learning path and collection.
Exactly, right? So a big part of the way we work is to learn, evolve, learn new concepts, new skills. And this article is about how you can create and craft learn content for your org, right? So it's another interesting example of how you use, again, our tools that we offer to facilitate the learning aspect of your org.
Yep, absolutely. Really, really cool stuff as well. Now, then there was a blog post in the Microsoft 365 blog and tech community on bookable time coming soon to Outlook. An interesting concept as well. I guess this relates on the booking service somewhat, but ideas are the same. But basically, having a dedicated time periods within your calendar where you can say, hey, this is fine for anybody to actually book my time. Not a bad idea, actually. So it depends on a company culture as well. So quite often I still get those, hey, Vesa, when do you have open time next week for whatever meeting? It's like, no, go to my calendar. My calendar is open for every single Microsoft employee. And then it has family time and sleeping times, just in case. So everybody knows when I'm actually working. So find a suitable spot, just take it. So there's no reason for having that endless email discussion. How about Tuesday, 8 a.m., what time zone? So anyway, good. And then there was a blog post, technically published by me, but from the PMs of the Microsoft, the SharePoint Pages API for Microsoft Graph, and we had a nice video related on that. This one as well released, where we show how those APIs are working. So there's now a public API release available, and we really want people to have feedback and test out things and let us know what works, what doesn't work before we actually roll out in the V1 release.
That's really cool.
I guess, yeah, this is really cool. So the one step at a time, we're getting there. It's should have been there for a while already, but hey, progress.
One step at a time. Yeah, one
exactly.
step at a time.
The other thing which we released last week was the adaptive card extension Viva for Viva Connection and Viva Home, a learning module. So specific learning module, actually 1 hour 50 minutes, so pretty long one on creating ACs with SharePoint framework for Viva Connection and for Viva Home. Viva Home is rolling out starting this week, so it's not yet in the official name of this learning module, but let's see how we are changing the product names, because apparently we want to change the product names all the time, so because that's always smart, isn't it? So
well, I mean, it's like, for one, it only shows that the idea that as we roll some things out, we get new ideas, we get feedback, new insights, and we learn and adapt, as opposed to say, no, we called this thing, so it's got to stay like that forever.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. It's also evolution, learning from the actions, absolutely 100%. So, but anyway, this one is all about building those ACE components. Yes, and there's Loki. ACE components.
My AI assistant.
Yes, but it's not artificial, Then we had an update from the Power Platform side, which is really, really cool as well. On the independent publisher connectors, so 20 new independent publisher connectors available. The stats on the independent publisher connectors are really wild. So I think there's even more independent publisher connectors than the official ones, which is really, really cool. So it really shows the power of open source community and scale.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Even though 50% of them has been actually created by Troy Taylor. No, just kidding. Troy has been super fundamental on making this happen. So thank you, Troy, on that. But of course, thank you for everybody else as well who are contributing on this open source project. And then this one was interesting as well. You said actually that, that's interesting. I want to actually do that.
Yeah, so get more done, or get done more with Excel and Power Automate. And the idea is that if you are in an Excel sheet and you want to do something about that sheet, you can start automation of it from Excel sheet, right? So in Excel, you have now the ability to create a flow, and that flow will be automatically attached to that Excel sheet already. And you can run a script or do some other things. But at that stage, Power Automate already knows that you want to do things on that Excel sheet, as opposed to you having to start from
the file,
Power Automate, adding Excel connector, connecting to the right sheet, and so forth and so on. So this is a really great way, especially given how widely Excel is used and for the range of different things you can use it, right? So this is a really cool thing, and I immediately have a need for this. Like there's something on my plate that I wanted to automate for the last few weeks. So I might just try this, because I had a need to run something once a day and add a row to a table. And sure, I might think about, I'm going to build Azure Function and storage. It's but I have the data in Excel sheet and I have the chart, and that's all I really need. So if I can use this, that would be brilliant. That would solve my need with fraction of the effort.
Absolutely. Really cool stuff. Then there was a blog post from Power Apps blog, easily shared devices between multiple frontline workers using Power Apps shared device mode. And this is basically the scenario where the frontline workers are sharing the same, for example, mobile phone based on the work. So let's say a bus driver who comes to work grabs the company phone with them as they're driving around, and then they leave it in the company as they stop their shift. So having multiple people sharing the same device, and how would that actually work in the Power App scenario? And that's now possible. That's actually really cool. A lot of work on the frontline worker targeting side from Microsoft. Now, the next 5 are actually just a series of SPFX development blocks. And we're not going to spend too much time on mentioning all of them, but basically I'm forcing myself to write a short blog post every single day because of I don't know why.
So that is an interesting thing, right? What has your experience been about it so far? Right, because given the fact that it's just one more thing that you do. how does that fit, and what is the experience so far, and what is the impact out of that?
So it's actually kind of interesting to force yourself to write one blog post every single day. There's a longer story why this happened, but now I'm actually committed on doing that in January, and it's all good. But it actually, the idea of this is that they're not super long. We're referencing existing material, but then we also have the Q&A section where we actually mention some of the frequently asked questions and that's kind of providing additional insights on, hey, people are asking these kind of things, and let's actually tackle that in this blog post. It's an interesting exercise to force yourself to write something every single day, and having that time booked. I think it was on Wednesday last week when I got the blog post out at 11:30 in the evening. But because I needed to do that, So yeah. I promised to do that for myself. But it's an interesting exercise, and clearly, actually, this is getting surprisingly a lot of attention in some of the social media platforms, which is cool. So people are looking into having this kind of recap. SharePoint Framework has existed for 5 years, 6 years already. So having this kind of hey, this is where you start, and it is a series, and we link those between each other as well. So you can actually run through from a day one towards, and then we cover different topics, or I cover different topics. And luckily, I will be getting some contributions from your MVPs in the upcoming weeks.
Cool. This is cool, though.
So, yeah, it's an interesting exercise for sure. So. Now, related on blogging a lot as well, Peter Spenstra had 2 blog posts from last week related on his Microsoft Graph series in the Power Platform, which are really good. 2 approaches of filtering and selecting data from Microsoft Graph in Power Automate was one of the blog posts. Talks about the different options and how do we filter, how do we hit those APIs in the Power Automate. And the second one was subscribe to Microsoft Graph using Power Automate. That's actually really interesting.
Exactly,
from
right?
a storyline perspective.
Because there are 2 ways like you can get the data. You can get the data as you poll. So right now I want to get data about X, or you can do it in a more reactive way. When something has changed, I want to know about it and then react to it.
Yes.
Right. So depending on what is it that you want to achieve, like you might need either approach. And the cool thing is they are both available. So you can complete both of them using Microsoft Graph and Power Automate.
Absolutely. Great work on that. Now, Paolo Pialorsi from PSUS had a new update on episode 234 using Azure Key Vault from Power Automate. So really cool scenario as well. Thank you, Paolo, on that. And then we had a Giuliano De Luca with a new video.
Yes, about how to create a poll with multiple questions in Microsoft Teams, right? So this is more a end user scenario where you have the ability now to create polls in Microsoft Teams, and how you would do it, how you would go about it.
Yep, thank you, Giuliano, on that. Shane had a new video on use 5 unpopular controls to build a Power App quiz app and elevate your UX. That's not actually, that's a decent looking.
How are they unpopular? Are they unpopular because people don't know about them, or are they unpopular because they're really bad?
Or they look ugly, or whatever. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, check the video. You'll see more
and
about that one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, exactly. And then the last video is with Julie and Bob Turner. Julie Turner from Swim Practice and Bob Sherman from Microsoft around JavaScript modules 101. Still need to bundle your browser code. Do you?
Yes.
Do you need to bundle? Well,
that is the question. Watch the video. Find out.
Yes, indeed. Cool. We already went through what's going to happen this week. I guess that's pretty much it then.
That is it. So long and thanks for all the fish. My cat is not almost falling asleep, but he's not. He's here saying bye to you.
Loki is taking care of you. Yes.
He's like, why are you disturbing me?
Why are you? Exactly.
Yes.
Leave me alone.
Stop.
Give me the food when I want. Other than that.
Yeah. Stop bothering me.
Exactly. Cool. Thanks everybody for watching or listening, depending on which format you're using, and we'll be back within a week. Please remember to provide feedback if you have suggestions, ideas, or what should let us know if you like the show.
Content.
Exactly. That's even more important. Hashtag PnP Weekly and Twitter. So thank you for that. Thanks, everybody. Cheers.
Bye-bye.